it discusses so many things. I don't know, man. I literally, the whole time I was in the theater, I started watching it at 9:30. I didn't leave the theater until like it was 12. I didn't get home until 1. So it was just like I was dead-eyed because so many things were happening at once. It went one direction, and then it went another, and then it went another, and then it went another, and then it like okay, chat, so things are gonna be a little bit different this go around. I'm shooting this in the middle of the night. I'm trying not to be too loud so I don't wake up too many people. But welcome back to our weekly little movie talk. And instead of doing things like, oh, here's what I watched, I'm just gonna go straight into it. So first off, I watched Substance. Substance is an amazing, incredibly unique and intriguing film. It approaches this body horror such a very disturbing manner. It tackles these ideas of beauty standards that society puts on women, on people, and how men continue to perpetuate these societal standards in order to make more money. So it's also, criticism on capitalism, these ideas that women are only valuable when they're attractive. It uses that in a very disturbing manner, especially in the body horror segment. This is a story. Also, spoilers. If you don't want to get spoiled, I really, really recommend to go watch the trailer and then go watch the movie if the trailer interests you. But if it doesn't, then I'm hopefully gonna convince you to go watch these movies. But it is very, very disturbing. The whole idea of the substance is the drug that you take in order to make yourself feel beautiful. It kind of it duplicates a person inside of you, and then in a very twisted sequence they show us this process, and it doesn't shy away from it, because the purpose of these moments is to show us how is to make us uncomfortable about the expectation we hold women to, especially in terms of being beautiful. It does these things, and I can't really speak too far in depth because there are other, I'm sure there are other women commentators on film who are filmmakers who talk about these sort of deals, who are able to talk about it in a much more personal matter. So I'm gonna try to approach this as someone who has been presenting as male for a long time, who has fallen into this trap of, oh, if I'm attractive, then I will be valuable. If I have abs, if I work out, if I do this and that, X and Y, I will become valuable to people because I am attractive in terms of body. And that is something that I've struggled with for a long time. I used to be a bodybuilder. I would work out 6 times a week, sometimes 2 times a day. I would eat incredibly strict in order to maintain this physique, because I wanted people to like me because of what I looked like. So I'm relating to that aspect of pursuing these almost impossible body standards. And it's not to say that pursuing, physical health, feeling good about yourself, feeling good about how you look, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can fall into the traps of not feeling enough, of never of the body dysmorphia that this film also tackles, and just does a really impressive and incredibly unique job on its position of maintaining this horror aspect of, especially as the film continues down, especially towards third act, where we see the more the younger you also duplicate their body in hopes of becoming even beautiful, even younger version of themselves. And it just kind of becomes this amalgamation of just the insecurities that we hold inside of ourselves. And it's such a profound fucking film. And it's so, I need a second rewatch, because it just, that first rewatch, you go in there and you just you lose your mind. It shocks you, it tempts you, it's a deeply uncomfortable, unsettling picture that just doesn't let go of you, no matter how hard you try to just not focus on this horror. And it does a really good job on that. And my dog is barking for whatever reason. Hopefully, she just be barking. Chihuahuas be barking. I have no clue. But Substance is incredibly unique. It's powerful in its statement. It, it it leaves you with just this unsettling feeling of this existential reality of you will get old, you will not look like you used to, and sometimes that can lead us towards these insecurities, towards not feeling valuable in society where people value what the aesthetics are. And that's a really scary thought, especially in a Eurocentric, manner. Uh, you know, no one likes you unless you're blonde, blue-eyed. Uh, you have a incredible physique. Your face card doesn't decline, and all these sorts of things. And as well as like the social media aspect of these things, you constantly see beautiful, beautiful people, which there isn't anything inherently wrong with being beautiful, but you see these things and you start to compare yourself, to these people who have access to surgeries, who have access to all these sorts of deals, who have access to private chefs, private trainers who are able to, work out because they have the money and the resources to do so. And, this comparison between these people who have access to so many things that help them become who they are, and comparing it to someone who is, working class, who maybe doesn't have enough time to work out, to eat as healthy as they might want to. And that comparison is a thief of joy. It's really frightening. It's really anxiety driven. This film is just, it does a lot of these things and talks about them, and approaches this subject in such a brilliant body horror aspect that just leaves you aghast and just makes you shrivel up. Not really, it really challenges you to question your own, thought process on how you perceive other people, on how you perceive yourself. And it's such a heartbreaking film, because so many people and so many women go through these things and never feel beautiful enough, never feel like they are enough. And it's horrendous. Every single person is beautiful, and not just in the like, oh, you're beautiful on the inside, but there is beauty in every single person, because they exist, because they are in this world. We are gifted, 1 in a million chance to be born or something like that. And it's incredibly heartbreaking to see people not feel like they're beautiful because of what they constantly see and is portrayed as beautiful. Lighter skin, skinnier bodies, curvier bodies, really dense musculature, ripped all the time, abs all the time, and these things. So, if you are going through these, issues, I'm gonna put down some resources down below, because it is a really heavy topic, and I might not be the best person to talk about it. I do my best, but obviously I'll have resources down below to, if you're struggling with these things, and maybe, some of these resources can help. And I'll of course do some research and just kind of put down some stuff in the description. So moving on, these are really heavy films. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna move on to Don't Let Go, because that's it does a lot of things. It's a questionable film. I really admire and respect Halle Berry as a performer, and her decision to make this film, because it tackles, another aspect that Substance also tackled: mental health, abuse, the cycle of abuse, how we pass down these traumatic experiences. And this film takes place in this weird post-apocalyptic thing where, like, oh, everyone in the outside world is demonic and evil and like dead and stuff, and they have demons inside of them. And then, Halle Berry has 2 kids who have to tie a rope around them that is attached to this house, and if they let go, then they'll, you know, get taken by the monsters. And it's such a tough film to talk about because I don't know. I struggled with it because even it's an incredibly interesting premise. I like this idea that they're playing with some of the religious trauma and themes, and that cycle of abuse of, you know, Halle Berry's character's mother abused her, who instilled these religious beliefs of like, oh, everyone in the outside world is evil and demonic and yada yada, and so you have to stay inside, you have to never let go in order to survive, and does that with it with its characters, and especially the two young boys who are absolutely wonderful. They're incredible. Because towards the end, towards the third act, take over the film. Obviously, spoilers for all of these films. So if you don't want to know more, don't go further. But there is this really daunting scene where Halle Berry's character takes her own life, and in that moment, we see her face to face with a I don't know what to say, a ghost, an image of her mother who abused her, and she is portrayed as this like snake. Every character that shows up that we see through Halle Berry's eyes are, you know, embodied by a snake, and it might play a little bit into the religious aspect of the film, where, you know, the snake is what led Adam and Eve to do that, and the snake represents like Satan and evil and stuff like that. And I do think this movie, it tries to talk about mental health, especially, you know, unaddressed mental health that leads people towards isolation, towards, you know, not towards disconnecting from the outside world and becoming an other. It's such a harrowing film about these issues that people deal with, and oh boy, this dog, this dog, she's a yapper, man. But yeah, it's Don't Let Go is such a tough movie to watch. It there's such a I hate it when movies do this thing where they have an animal character. Usually it's a dog or a cat or something. It's a pet, and they put the pet in dangerous and harrowing situations that make you feel a lot of anxiety. Because for some reason we are more empathetic to animals on screen than we are to other human beings, and that's a whole other conversation. Especially when it comes to the medium of film, we can easily watch each other die, but when it comes to our animals, even if it's fictional, we never want to see them die. We never want to see them hurt, and that's, you know, that's another conversation. But it sometimes movies do these things where, oh, we might kill the animal, blah, 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 and it just uses that as a very, it feels kind of cheap. And I don't know, this movie, it uses that trope of like, are we gonna kill the dog? And that kind of becomes frustrating. They do it once, they never do it again, thankfully. But they do it once, and it's like at that climax moment where Halle Berry's character takes her own life, and that, as it sets off the rest of the film with the two boys, and they become slowly more consumed by this evil entity. I don't know. It's really, because the film flip-flops a lot. Oh, is it real? Is this demonic entity thing real, or is it, you know, undiagnosed mental illness? And it does that so much that it becomes exhausting. And at the very end of the film, it kind of just, it's like, I'm done, you know, you won't give me the answer, and that's fine. Sometimes that works really well. It leaves you with like, oh shit. And hopefully it doesn't lead into a sequel, because I don't think it needs one. It felt like it was sequel baiting. I'm not sure. I don't know how you would ever do a sequel, because towards the end of the film, they're rescued by other people when it seemed like, oh, civilization was like dead and gone. But it does that, man. It flip-flops so much that it kind of left me not really caring anymore about these characters. It kept, making me think, oh, is it real or is it not real? And it does that so much that it loses me in the major theme of this film, which is like, hey, we got to do our best to take care of our people, especially people who are suffering from mental illness, who are becoming a danger to themselves and others. And it's important to understand, to have empathy, and to love these people, as and do your best to be able to help them. And the entire thing is eventually letting go. It's I don't know, it's such a hard film to talk about. I don't really know. I don't know. It's a really tough film. It's one of those films that kind of just leaves you thinking and pondering, and sometimes it didn't really feel worth it. But it is a really well crafted film. It did pull on my heartstrings. These moments with these characters, they were really beautiful character moments with the brothers, with wanting to take care of each other, and then starting to feel this hatred, this jealousy, this bitterness towards each other. And it's such a heartbreaking thing to see. And it's something you never want to go through personally, of course. But it's so daunting, this film. And I think I'll leave it at that, because I really want to talk about Megalopolis. Mega-fucking-lopolis. Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis is a fable that takes place in this New York type of city. It's called New Rome. It has very much Roman inspired stuff. It's very it's very allegorical to the rise and fall of Rome, to these great cities and civilizations, and it takes you on this really intriguing journey through the eyes of Caesar. Of course, his name is Caesar, but this guy who invented this metal that has, I don't know, this metal is God. I can't really think about it. It's like this material that will fix anything, that will make things perfect, that will lead us to a golden revolution, to a golden age. It discusses so many things. I don't know, man. I literally, the whole time I was in the theater, I started watching it at 9:30. I didn't leave the theater until it was 12. I didn't get home until 1. So it was just I was dead-eyed, because so many things were happening at once. It went one direction, and then it went another, and then it went another, and then it went another, and then it just zigzagged so much. It touched on so many things, on consciousness, on what civilization could be, on what we could be if we talk to each other, about what it means to have a conversation, what it means to uplift people, to help others, to the struggle of class, of power, of having influence, of having wealth, and extravagant wealth, and the aesthetics and the aesthetics of fame, celebrity culture, the political dynamics of, are these our politicians who should serve us, or are we treating them as celebrities who we are going to stand and be fans of and have crowds for, and they never really do anything for us, which is something that I feel like we are starting to fall into, this weird stand culture of political figures, when it comes to just sticking with one political figure and just riding with them no matter what. And it's a very terrifying thing, because once you do that, you let go of your autonomy, you let go of your freedom and your self-fulfilling ability to create your own life, because politicians are meant to serve us. They're not meant to be worshipped. They're not gods. They're not these royals, they're not kings or queens. They're people just like us, but they're in positions of power that can influence and change our lives drastically. This film, it touches on that. And it also touches on interpersonal relationships, on how we can, I don't know, it deals with grief, a very heavy topic on grief, and how that kind of leads us towards becoming self-isolating, because our main character is dealing with grief after losing his wife, and we see him kind of love again, to believe again, not just in himself but in the people. And it was through that love of someone else seeing the good in him, of seeing the potential in this idea of a utopia, this idea of like a better world, that we can start to move forward, not through, power, not for influence, but for love. For the sake of love, we have to work together, we have to talk to one another, we have to love each other radically, we have to love our neighbor in order to move forward. And obviously, right now it's such a difficult thing, and I don't personally, I don't know. This film leaves you with so many moments, so many questions, that you just kind of like, it's frustrating, because I know Francis Ford Coppola, this is his passion project, this is what he has dreamt about for decades. He spent so much money to make this thing a reality, and it's out and it's here and it's for us, and it's no longer his, even though his name is attached. And I'm not even gonna touch on like the weird shit he's done. I've never been, a massive Francis Ford Coppola fan. I really appreciated and enjoyed Apocalypse Now, and I've never seen The Godfathers, unfortunately, so I never had that connection. But seeing this and seeing, it's interesting, because this is kind of like, I've seen Apocalypse Now, never really seen any other of his films, which is honestly my bad, because he is a fantastic filmmaker. He's brilliant, he's amazing, he's really interesting, has a lot to say, and of course, he sometimes says a lot of dumb shit. White guys always say some dumb shit, and I appreciate that. I just don't want him to keep talking, to keep yapping. Let the film do the talking. Just stop talking about it. Stop talking about cancel culture. All right, calm down. It doesn't exist. All right, but this film does a lot of talking. It asks a lot of questions. It questions us, questions what we believe on how we can go forward. How can we make the lives of other people better? So it just, man, just so many things that I'm just kind of thinking about. It leaves you exhausted. This film leaves you exhausted. It kind of, I need another rewatch, because towards the end of the film, it does take us into this utopia. It shows us what could be if we started to love each other more than hate. And right now we are in a position where we are very much focused on our hate for each other. And obviously there are issues where people, marginalized communities, people of color, minorities, we just are being targeted. We are being targeted. They are using hate to attack us, to criminalize us, to accuse us of vile things that aren't true, and how do we combat these things? Is it through hate? Is it through hating them? Through putting our money, oh shit, I gotta wrap up. But it's do we fight fire with fire, or do we fight fire with love? And obviously that's naive. It's incredibly naive, and this film is not like kumbaya, if only we loved each other and believed in each other. And towards the end of the film, it does kind of start to fall in that direction, but I think it leaves it open-ended enough to really give us a chance to decide. Are we going to let the hate of others infect our hearts and lead us towards hating even harder, even worse? And that's the difficult part, because these aren't good faith people. They aren't saying these things about trans people. They aren't saying these things about Black, Mexican people, Haitians, immigrants. They aren't doing these because they love uh, each other. They doing it because they love themselves more than they do anyone else, and think they're better than everyone else. So it's this really I'm falling way off track, but it does fall in line. It's how do we love people who hate us? How do we love radically? That's the hard thing. That's the hardest thing. How do we continue to love radically when we are constantly bombarded with this hate? And then that lead us towards us hating ourselves, towards seeing each other as not good enough, of not left enough, of these things, and this pedestal, putting politicians on pedestals as if they're our saviors, which they aren't, and they're never going to be. They are tools. They are meant to serve us. And this film could just kind of comes out feel like at a really important time in history, while fascism, tyranny is kind of taking over slowly. There is a better future, and my hope is that we can begin to love each other more than we hate each other. And obviously that's a naive conclusion, but it's what's necessary. And we can either hate each other until we go extinct, or find ways we can start to love a little bit better. And this movie just kind of, it leaves you thinking. It really does. It really just challenges these notions. And I'm really curious on what people think, because Megalopolis is such a unique film. It's a film that's gonna stand the test of time. I don't think people hating it are necessarily smart, and I don't think people who absolutely love it are being honest, right? Because it's these two extremes. You have to be one or the other. Obviously, I'm not centrist at all, but there are aspects that, do fall lesser, which could have been strengthened if the film was a little bit more focused. But it does so many things. It's such a unique piece of film, and it's going to stand the test of time, just as Apocalypse Now has, just like the Godfather trilogy has. And we're going to be talking about it for a very, very long time. And I think simply hating it or loving it is unwise. I think we kind of just... The film is about having a conversation. And I think we need to start having these conversations, not just in film and what it means to love film, in having an honest dialogue about films and our criticism and analysis, because there are bad faith people out there who are using some of these projects, some of these shows, these movies, these games, these stories as a way to hate on another, when stories are meant to bring us closer, and stories are meant to save us. Stories are meant to heal us. They're meant to they're meant to be used as a way to ask ourselves questions about who we are, about how we can be better, how we can love each other a little bit better. And I think that ultimately is what Megalopolis is. How do we start to love each other a little bit better? How can we just try? How do we try? And there's so much, information coming out all the time, and it's just overwhelming people. It's, there's misinformation about who other people are, about this and that. There's liberals who are happy when conservative states are being destroyed by a hurricane, when people are dying. The Texas freeze a couple years ago, when people just kind of made fun of Texas, of not really, this generalization, because there are a lot of progressive queer people in Florida, in Texas, and all these sort of conservative red states who are struggling, who love this place. I love this place. I love Texas. It's my home. I've been here for so long, of course. And to see online leftists make fun of people dying, of saying, oh, this is what you get for being a red state, and it's just, where has our empathy gone? And I am going on for too long. I'm talking about movies. I love movies. It's my bread and butter. These, I'm not gonna have the most in-depth, most philosophical, most like, oh, look at me, I'm so cool, I'm so smart. Because I'm not. I love movies. I love making them. I love stories. They've helped me. They've made me cry. They've saved my life so many times. And it's these things that I love, that I just want to share, and just, it's a pain. It's a pain. It's so painful. Because I love film. And film is a conversation with yourself. It's an honest conversation, especially when you try to make one. You can't make a film when you're trying to tell someone something. It has to start with you. It has to start inside. And you have to begin to be honest with yourself. And these films, they help me be honest with myself sometimes. And so many times it has saved me. And this has gone on a little bit too long. My name has been Sergio Javier Valverde. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Please like. Do all the things. I really, really appreciate it. And videos every week. At least these types of videos. I'm working on some essays and another show, which, if you haven't followed our Instagrams or socials, they'll be linked down below. So go check them out. I'm going to be grateful. Go watch these movies. Enlighten yourself. Love yourself a bit better, please. Thank you so much. I love you. Ew, why did I say that? I'm going to cut that out. Or actually, no. No. I love you guys, truly. Even though you only watch probably 5 minutes of this. Thank you. Time to go edit this.